Hello and welcome to this webinar on how to make the most in 2018 through your Princess Royal Training Award. I'm Michael Osbaldeston from the City and Guilds Group, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Remi, Ogunleye and also Fenella, Tallon.
Hello. Hello.
So on this rather snowy day in London town, and hopefully you've all managed to get to the office or connected into the webinar successfully, you're very welcome to join us. You're also very welcome to ask us questions during the course of the webinar. And if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the opportunity to type in questions, and we'll take those questions at the end of the webinar, if that's okay. So a very warm welcome on a very cold day, and we hope that by the end of this webinar, we'll have told you a fair amount about how to make the most of your application form. So what are we going to do during the course of this webinar? Well, first of all, we're going to tell you a little bit about the awards so that you're quite clear what the Princess Royal Training Awards are for. We're going to give you 3 steps to make the most of your application, and we're going to tell you about the awards timetable, and that's obviously very important in terms of the closing date. We have Fenella with us, who's going to share some top tips from the assessors and from the chief assessor, and then we're going to answer your questions before we close the webinar in just over half an hour's time. So what are the Princess Royal Training Awards? Well, they're an evidence-based award programme that recognises the impact that learning and development and training has on an organisation and its people. That learning and development can be formal or informal, but it has to be done to meet a particularly identified business need, and then you have to have the evidence to show that you have met that need and that's made a significant difference. So they're all about impact. Now in their 3rd year, we're delighted at the number of people who've shown an interest in the Princess Royal Training Awards, and they're helping us to identify the best practice that's around across the United Kingdom. They are important in recognising how training really does make a difference to an organisation and to the people in the organisation. And we're very proud that we have the practical support of our president here at the City and Guilds Group, Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal. And these don't only happen in her name, she is genuinely involved in the awards, takes an interest in them, and is part of the final adjudication for them. Well, as you've probably picked up already, they're free to enter, and of course we don't charge either for the entry or for the event. And the last couple of years we've been lucky enough to hold that event at St James's Palace, and it's a very fitting way of recognising the impact that training is having. They're open to employers of all sizes and across all sectors, public, private and the 3rd sector. And you don't have to be in any sort of relationship with City and Guilds Group or any of the parts of that group to apply for one of these awards. They are indeed a standard of excellence rather than a winner. And we think that's really quite important, because if you're investing in training and development, actually there are no losers, because your people and your organisation are benefiting. And we want to recognise a standard rather than pick out a single organisation. Now, over the last couple of years, we've awarded 74 different organisations with the Princess Royal Training Award, and this is just a few of the organisations on the screen now. And they range from a small engineering company in Scarborough, Dale Power Solutions, through to a major charity, Macmillan, caring locally, doing some really innovative work with their volunteers in Christchurch. Again, if you look at the East of England Co-op, that was the East of England Co-op's funeral service, which was absolutely fascinating application. And Waitrose developed an app that's helped them reduce the wastage on sell-by dates on their shelves. And that app, in fact, was developed by one of their apprentices. So across the whole of those organisations, we've seen some really innovative work, really exciting work, and work which they're proud to share, not only with other people who've got the Princess Royal Training Award, but generally across UK PLC. And of course, it's essential that we continue to develop the staff of all organisations of all sizes in the United Kingdom to ensure that we continue to be competitive and make the most of that most precious resource, the human resource, the people who work for our organisations. So Remi, let's move on to step 1. Can you tell us about the application form and how to make the most of it, please?
Yes, thank you, Michael. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying the first part of the application really is all about you telling telling us about you. So you tell us about you, and then the second part, which is also a sort of intro, is about your organization. So this is where you tell us who you are, what sector you operate in, how many people have taken the learning, and also give us a bit more detail about your organization. So once you've done that, we then go into the core of the application. So I guess you can say the first part is sort of the scene setting part. This part is particularly useful and important to us because it helps us to understand who you are, like I said earlier. It also helps us to plan our marketing strategy. It also helps the assessors to recognize you, to know who you are as they're looking and judging your application. So to the core of the application, use the hallmarks to structure your story because, as you know, like I said earlier, your application is a tool for you to tell us about your organization, about your fantastic learning and training development that you're doing, and also for other people to share best practice from. We'll come into, sharing best practice later on in the presentation. But please use the hallmark to structure your story. So the 3 hallmarks are divided into 2 sections, and each of those sections have various points allocated to them. So hallmark 1, this is where you tell us that training and learning and development is integral to your organization. It's part of your DNA. Was there any particular training needs that you were trying to meet? How did you meet those needs? Tell us. And part 2 of the first hallmark is talking about working towards a sustainable learning culture. Tell us how training and learning and development is part of your organization. What training needs were you trying to meet? Did you meet that need? How did you meet that need? Was it skill shortage you were trying to cover, or was it even a succession plan? Did you get there? Tell us. Now you look at those criteria points and answer each of those, because as you can see, they have points allocated to them. And as you answer those criteria points, those points add up. And they're the ones that give you the full marks at the end of the day. So moving on now, like I said, to the second part of the first hallmark, is where you tell us how learning and training and development is part of your DNA as an organization. So we're going to move to hallmark 2. This is where you tell us how you delivered those training. What was the planning? What went into it? Did you use any innovative systems at all? Was there anything distinctive that you did? How did you evaluate this program? Tell us in hallmark 2. And also in hallmark 2, you can tell us how cost effective you judge the training to be. That doesn't necessarily only have to be in monetary terms, because we know that some organizations train volunteers and it may only be in resource terms. Tell us. Again, look at the criteria, answer the criteria questions, and give relevant evidence. Fenella will talk to us about evidence later on in the program. But please look at those criteria points and absolutely make sure that as you're answering those, you're actually ticking off every one of those points. Now, going into hallmark 3, this is where you tell us about the impact. So you've told us about learning and training and development being integral to your organization. You've told us about the planning and the delivery of the learning and training. So tell us, what's the impact? What's the impact on your organization? What difference did the program make to your business? Have you reached your projected outcomes? Have you even exceeded them? Tell us in the first part of the third hallmark. Now, the second part of the third hallmark is talking about the impact to your people. That's really absolutely crucial. You need to show us that the impact on the training has really shown on your people. Has the impact led to any increased sales at all? Has there been increase in the morale of your staff? Tell us. Has there been staff retention? Please tell us. Again, look at those criteria points. Make sure you're answering them. Each of the hallmark is equally as important. You can't be strong in one and be weak in the other. The assessors will be looking for you to be strong throughout each of those hallmarks and the criteria points. Now we move on to sharing best practice. We absolutely encourage you, because you're doing fantastic things. If you don't talk about it, no one would know about it. What do you do well? What could others learn from you? Show that you're ahead of the game. Be an inspiration. Raise your profile and your reputation. And I think it's important to point out here that HRH is very keen that employers share best practice. So she absolutely encourages it. We move on now to the fourth part, or the fifth part, which is the endorsement. Now, we've talked about how learning and development and training is important to your organization. This is where you bring the cycle together. This is where you show us how true that statement is. Because if you have the buy-in from your senior people, that just tells us that training, learning, and development runs absolutely through your culture. So get your senior management team. Please see this not just as a tick box exercise, because the assessors would absolutely know if the senior managers endorsing this mean this, or if this is just something else they have to do. Make sure that the senior management are absolutely in with you on this. Again, please look at those criteria points, answer those criteria points, make sure all the evidence that you provide is relevant to each of the hallmarks. And we hope you're able to put a fantastic application together. We look forward to receiving them. I'll hand it over back to Michael now, who's going to take us through the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Remi. Yes, so just to summarise, really, after you've shown us that training and development is very much part of your organisation's DNA, tell us why you did it, tell us how you did it, and tell us what was the impact. So those three words are really good in terms of focusing on the information we want in the application form for the Princess Royal Training Award here in 2018. Now, for those of you who've applied in the past, you might notice that the application form is a little bit different in that we have the criteria and the application form in a single document online this year. So that's hopefully going to help you stay focused, follow the criteria, and make sure that you address each of the criteria. Now, we come to Fenella and step 2 in the evidence. So congratulations, Fenella, today on being appointed the Deputy Chief Assessor. So
Thank you, Michael.
That's a good bit of news. and obviously, you've got a lot of experience in assessing not just these awards, but many awards. These are an evidence-based awards programme. So as an assessor, tell us what sort of evidence you're looking for, please.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Yeah, the evidence is really important when you come to complete the application form. It's your chance to give us some more information that reinforce the statements that you've provided in the written sections of the form. So if you've given us some information, say some benchmarking information about where you started from and perhaps what you hope to achieve, you can actually back that up with some graphs or some data or extracts from perhaps policies that you've got, and you can include that in the evidence, because we do realise that the word count in the body of the application form is quite tight, so we've given you some extra capacity really to give us some more information. The limits of the evidence, you can have one document per hallmark, so that is 3 documents in total. Each of those can be 2 megabytes and no more than 500 words per attachment, please. We have had in the past very, very wordy attachments and people's entire annual report and things like that. We don't want that, please. We want it to be very, very pertinent to to the application, and also no external links. Much as we would like to see programs that you've perhaps been involved with, that been on TV or YouTube or whatever, we can't accept those. So yes, do take full advantage of the evidence. We have had applications in the past where that hasn't been used, and really you're not making best use of the process if you don't use the application, the evidence part of the application. I would reinforce, please do include charts and data that's set out in a picture or an image, because we can really see what you're saying very quickly in that way.
And one of the reasons, that we have this limit on the sort of the amount of evidence that can be attached is to make sure it's a level playing field, isn't it? So that everybody has exactly the same chance. You don't have one organisation putting thousands of bits of paper in and another only putting one in.
Yes,
the level playing field is really important. But the other thing is we talk about the application form being a box, don't we? So do you want to just talk a little bit about what we can look at on the validation visit and what we can't look at on the validation visit?
That's right. Anything that you include within the application form and within the evidence, we can then go on to ask you about if we come to do a validation visit. So say if you mention some metrics about success or achievement or impact, and you've given us just a snapshot, we can then go on to ask you more about that at the validation visit. But if you haven't mentioned about it at all in the application, then we can't actually consider it when we come to a visit. And that's really important, because we've had this in the past where we've gone to a visit and there's been a plethora of information and evidence available that hasn't been mentioned, that's new to us. So I'm afraid we can't consider that. So please do mention anything within the application that you want us to then ask more about when we come to visit you.
I mean, in many ways, the evidence is a teaser, isn't it, really? It's holding up to the assessors that there's more to be seen.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you've got things you want us to look at, whether it's videos or whether it's additional information, just tell us it's there. And then at the validation visit, we can look at it and we can delve more deeply into it when we get to that part of the process.
Absolutely. So if you look at the application form like a box, anything that's within the box that we've seen, we can ask you about. But if it's not been put in the box, if it's outside the box, we can't look at it. So that's probably the best way to describe it.
I think that's a really good one. Again, I see the evidence, I see what's presented in the application as the tip of an iceberg. And there's a lot of stuff beneath the water that we can look at on the visit, but we can't necessarily fit into the actual application, as long as we've referenced it.
Absolutely.
Then,
and it might just
be
one sentence about a particular bit of information that then we can delve deeper into later.
So maybe a quote from an annual report or a quote from a testimonial, or just one set of figures that illustrates there's more to be had. And that's what you assessors like.
It is, yes.
We have a rule in the office. If we mention the word evidence, the assessor's eyes all light up.
Yes, we love our evidence.
And these are an evidence-based award, so we do need to have that evidence to justify what people are saying. And also the evidence, I think, provides that audit trail, doesn't it? Back to the things you say in the application form, it allows us to follow that process through.
It does, absolutely. And when we come on a visit, we will ask you for certain bits of information that we want to see, just really to check that they exist, but also to delve a bit deeper into what's behind it. So, yes, it is really, really important.
Well, thank you, Fenella, for that. So, step 3, and Remi's already spoken a little bit about sharing best practice. But Remi, why do we want people to share best practice? What's so important about sharing best practice in the Princess Royal Training Awards?
We absolutely want people to share best practice, because if you don't shout about the fantastic things that you do, no one would know about them. And we absolutely encourage you to be trailblazers. What is it that you do so well that others could learn from, that others could copy from? Tell us about it. What could others learn from you? Show that you're ahead of the game, as it says on the screen. Be an inspiration, like I said earlier. Raise your profile and your reputation. We absolutely want you to succeed. We want other organizations to learn from you. We want to shout about your achievements. So please, bring it to us. Michael.
Right, well, thank you for that. And it's very, very much part of the awards, is having a chance to let other people see what you've done and hopefully learn from what you've done and stop them having to reinvent the wheels. And like Remi said earlier on, the Princess Royal is very keen that people don't reinvent wheels, very keen that we learn from best practice. So the awards timetable, now this is really important because the closing date is the 29th of March. Maundy Thursday, so before you break up for your Easter weekend and go off to the sunshine, although looking out of the window here, the thought of sunshine is a long way off, you need to get your application form in by the 29th of March. And then what happens after that is we assess it. Now, actually, Stuart, if you'd like to just click on the next slide, I'll just run through the assessment whilst talking about the timetable as well. What happens after the applications arrive? Well, the assessors will mark them against the criteria. We will then do a moderation session that looks at the ones in the middle rankings to see which ones should receive a validation visit. Now, having a validation visit is no guarantee that you're going to get an award, but it means you're on the way there. After the initial assessment, if you're not going to progress towards a validation visit, we do send you detailed feedback on the application form. So the assessors will put together very detailed feedback, and always happy to talk that feedback through with you once you've got it. So if you do proceed to a validation visit, then an assessor and a City and Guilds ambassador will come to see you for about 3 hours, just under half a day, to look at the application, to meet people, to talk to people, to listen to what you've been doing, to experience it on the ground. And I have to say, it's one of the most motivating things that the City and Guilds colleagues do, is go out on the ambassador visits. They come back absolutely full of it, and they see such amazingly good practice. But that's a chance to sort of bed in what's appeared in the application form, what the evidence has been saying, and it's a really important part of the process. Again, once those have taken place, the chief assessor receives reports from the assessors. They go to the commission, and the commission is a group of people who've got a lot of experience in this world, and they make the final adjudication as to which of the applications receive a Princess Royal Training Award. And again, if you don't get to that final part, we provide detailed feedback, and we obviously happy again to talk to people, to work through it, and to explain what could be improved for an application the following year. So all that happens after the closing date on the 29th of March and through to sort of middle of July. We announce the award recipients on the 15th of August, which happens to be the Princess Royal's birthday. And then later in the autumn, we will have an award ceremony. Now, between the announcement and the award ceremony, we will offer people a workshop to come in to work with us for their communications and their public relations staff to help tell the story. And last year we had a really fantastic day when people came in, shared stories, we brought our PR agency in, we gave people some ideas. Some of the larger organisations who'd achieved an award then worked with some of the smaller ones to help them tell their stories. So a really good opportunity to engage and work with other recipients of the Princess Royal Training Awards. So, and then of course we launched the year afterwards, so it follows on in a cycle of that sort. So, moving on to some of our top tips. And these are quite important. And in a moment, Fenella is going to give you the assessors and chief assessors' top tips. But let's just share a few things that we as a team here have noticed. Very important to get a colleague or a friend to read your application form so that they see that it sits as a narrative, as a story. Really important to get somebody who's not been involved in writing it to read it, to see if it makes sense to them, see if it flows, see if they're getting the point that you're trying to get across. And don't leave that to the last minute, because if you leave it to the last minute, your colleague or friend might not be available. So, give yourself plenty of time to do that. Important too to make sure that the energy of the first draft is still there. So don't revise it so many times that it just finishes up as a series of sentences. Make sure that it's got the energy and the passion that you want to share, because you're proud of the work you've done and you want us to see that pride. That's really, really key to it too. Make sure you answer the questions and keep referring to the criteria. We fall with jargon. It has to be said that jargon trips up every industry. You're bound to have jargon, but if you can use plain language, please do that. If you've got to use acronyms, please tell us what they mean, because although the assessors are professional assessors, they won't be professionals in every subject area that we're actually going to look at. So if you can avoid jargon and acronyms, then that makes life a lot easier. And link the evidence you're going to attach with the story you're going to tell. So put a little number in, put a 1 in, and put an asterisk. Do something so that we know which bits of the evidence link into which bit of the story you're telling us. And if you need help, just email us or call us, because we're very happy to provide help. We're very happy to support. We can't write your application form for you, but we can give you guidance and steers, because these are awards about finding a reason to recognise your excellence, not a reason for finding fault. So we like to be inclusive rather than exclusive. We want people to succeed, not fail. So these are awards about recognising excellence and sharing that, not finding fault with people. So I'm going to now ask Fenella. Fenella, Chief Assessor, Deputy Chief Assessor's top tips. Tell us more.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yes. As it says on the slide there, avoid over modesty. So if you've done something fantastic and you think you're a leader in your field, please do tell us. And trying to avoid sort of management speak and generalities, because we often don't know what they mean unless we're right in your sector. And also, going back to that point about evidence, back up anything that you say in terms of metrics or achievements. We need to have evidence to back that up. So that goes back to the first point, don't just tell us generalities. We do need to have specifics about what you've achieved. Because what we're looking for is to come and visit you. That's what the application is about. It's to get you over the hurdle, and then we would come and visit you. And then we can really take that opportunity to talk to your staff, talk to you, and find out more about what you've been doing. But if you don't fill in the application form properly and give us the evidence we need, you probably won't reach that stage. And also, don't try and make up evidence. People don't try and do that. Actually, you might find this as a learning point as you go through the form. If you think, oh, I've got lots of things for Hallmark 1, I've got lots of things for Hallmark 2, or I've not got much for Hallmark 3, which is what we look at, which is impact. And you think, perhaps if you haven't got the impact, maybe it could be too early for you to be applying. So you may have to rethink that. And think about, if you haven't got the evidence for each of the hallmarks, what does that say? You may need to revisit your application. We know the word count is tight, so please don't provide us with unnecessary bits of information. Please do stick to the criteria and answer those, because as assessors, we mark against those criteria. So we're actually scoring the application. So get as many points as you can. And as Michael was saying earlier, do provide us with quotations. That's fantastic. One quotation will be fine. We just need to have something that shows that your people have benefited from the learning and are perhaps doing something differently as a result of it. And case studies are always good as well, but we can dig in deeper when we come to see you.
Thank you, Fenella. I think that's really useful. It's worth saying that we do believe what people tell us, don't we? So if you've got 69 people who've done the training, you don't have to give us their name and inside leg measurements. Just tell us there were 69. So we do believe what you say. We will check when we come on the visit. We do believe what you say, which is really important. So we're here to help, or to be more precise, Remi and Laura are here to help. Remi's in the room with us. Laura's in frozen York at the moment. Would have been with us had the trains run today, but they're very happy to take phone calls, to answer emails, and to provide whatever support you need. We're also, the team here are very happy to get engaged, and we will arrange conversations with the assessors if necessary, and if you find that would be useful. We need to go on to the questions now, and we've got a number of questions that's come in, and I'm going to work through them and ask my colleagues to help us. So be ready, guys. Here we go. So Rachel, you asked a question about can you put videos in? Does it have to be in written form? Well, the application form does have to be on our application form, but if you've got videos which are supportive evidence, please tell us about that, and then we'll look at them when we come on the visit. Is that right, Fenella?
Yes, that's right. Don't actually include a link to the video because we can't actually watch it. Tell us that you've got it. And then it's something that we could see at the visit if we need to.
It does raise an interesting question as to whether applications in other forms than the written form could happen. And it is actually something we're looking at. So it's quite an interesting area of discussion, that. But this year we need the application form, but please refer to videos you've got, and we'll very happily look at them when we come on the visit. Guy, you've been asking about, do you have to complete the application form in one go, or can you save it and return? Now, Stuart's in the room, and he's doing all the technology for us. So, Stuart, if you start the application form, can you go back to it?
You can go back anytime when you do the first page. You're registering your interest, and then from that point forward, you get sent a link, and then that link at any time you can click on to go back to your application.
And of course, you can download a paper-based one to work on, can't you? So if you're going to share it with colleagues, you can download the paper-based one, use that, and then cut and paste onto the final online system, can't you?
That's right.
And in fact, I have to say, if I were you, I would make sure you save a copy of that for your own interest and to share with people afterwards, would be my honest thought. So, Remi, you've got a question there. What's the question you've got?
Yes, I've got a question. Someone's asking how many awards are on offer. Michael, do you want to take that?
Yes, there are as many awards on offer as there are organisations who reach the standard. There is no set number. We haven't had a set number in the previous 2 years. If you reach the defined standard, and if the commissioners believe the work that you're doing is of a standard to receive a Princess Royal Training Award, you will receive an award. So it's not limited by numbers. You're not competing with anybody else. You're only competing against the standard, which is why it doesn't matter if you're a small plumber up in North East Lancashire with your Bentley motors, you can still achieve the standard. Now, do quotations count in the word count? Oh, yes, yes, yes. Quotations definitely count in the word count. But don't forget, you can give us a snippet of a quotation.
Yes, absolutely. It's a flavour we're looking for, and so you don't need to use up too many words for that.
Remi, what have you got there? You've got another question in front of you.
Yes, I've got a question from Anna. Anna's saying that they've got several programs, and she's asking if she should apply for each one separately or summarize them into one application.
Really good question.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Yeah.
And the answer is separate them, because there won't be enough words to tell 3 stories.
Yeah.
So you can apply, if you've got different programs that have got different impact, you can make multiple applications. And in fact, in both years, organisations have won more than one Princess Royal Training Award because they presented very different programs to us with different lots of evidence. So if you've done some really great things, then you can make more than one application. So that's a simple one to that.
Another one from Anna. Anna is asking if the evidence includes tables or charts. Do the words inside the tables count towards the 500 word count, Fenella?
Yes, the quick answer is yes. Yes, they do. We've had this one before, so it's not a way that you can use to increase the word counts. So we generally find that there's not many words in the charts or graphs anyway, but yet the short answer is yes.
And again, it's a matter of finding the relevant bit that might allude to more being available. So you can show us a bit and say there is more available. In fact, somebody's just said, can the evidence be in the form of PowerPoint? Well, you can, as long as it's less than 2 megabytes, or you can do a screen grab of a couple of slides and put it on. That would be fine. And again, that would allude to the fact that there is more evidence to look at when we do the visit. Now we've got another question here which has just arrived. A long written report which is too large for use as evidence, but a much more condensed PowerPoint one. I'd actually just fish out part. I'd actually take a little bit of that report and just a key sentence or so and use that on the evidence. Wouldn't you, Fenella?
Yes,
Is that what you
absolutely. Just take an extract of that report, the most relevant extract that you can find, and then we can ask to see the full report when we come and see you.
Like I say, we do believe you. When you say that you've got more, we do believe you, and we will come and look at that. Now, this webinar will be on the website, so you can actually see it again or listen to it again, and we will answer, like I say, any questions that you've got during the course of, between now and the 29th of March when the closing date is. So please keep in touch, and we'll keep in touch with you too. I think we've now run through one more question is how will people know that we've received their application form? Remi, this is your territory.
Yes, we absolutely respond to every application coming in. So if after 48 hours you haven't heard from us, there's a problem. please email us to query. If you submit online, you get an automated email confirming receipt of your application. And if you've completed the form offline, we will send you an email confirming that we've received your application. If that email hasn't come through, it's either what you've attached is too large, the application hasn't come through, or there could be a problem. But please do contact us.
Yes, we will be in touch, so please do contact us if we don't contact you once we've received the application form. So it really only leaves me to say thank you all for being part of this webinar today. Very grateful that you've joined us on this snowy and cold day. I'd like to thank my colleagues here, Stuart, who's been looking after the technology for us, and to Remi and to Fenella, who have done valiant service in helping deliver this webinar. We look forward to receiving your application for the Princess Royal Training Award in 2018. And don't forget, Maundy Thursday, 29th of March, before you have your Easter eggs, get your application form in, and then look forward to a validation visit. Who knows, you may be with us in the palace later in the year, sipping champagne and eating the most delicious cakes you've ever seen. So thank you for being with us today, and goodbye.